Great to be with you. It is the On Friar podcast. Bob Melvin is not a happy man.
No,
I don't
nor
think
should he be.
I don't think Derek Togerson is a happy man.
Nor should I be.
I've certainly felt better as someone who's spent some time around this team, who's spent some time following this club. I think anybody who's a fan follower of the Padres, you felt better than you do right now. It just feels like they're in kind of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back, or maybe 1 step forward, 2 step back type of situation. And so we will discuss that. We will discuss an unhappy Bob Melvin, what he had to say, and they stubbed their toes again as they go into another series with the Dodgers. You run the risk of there being a considerable gap there in the standings, which you didn't expect that to be the case kind of going into mid-May. But here we are. I wish it was a more positive tone. We've had too many of these episodes, one week after another, where we're kind of like, oh, gosh. And here's another one. First things first, though, let's talk about a team that always delivers, and that's OGs, Derek. Head to OGs.com to sign up and download the OGs app. You can now visit your local OGs, eat pizza, drink beer, earn rewards. OGs rewards available at select OGs locations.
They got an app? Hang on. While you're reading this, I'm going to download that app. Go ahead.
Download that app. Find your local OGs. If you got a big game, if you got a party that you want to watch, maybe it's the NBA playoffs. Got the PGA Championship coming up here. Obviously, Padres games, NHL playoffs, whatever tickles your fancy, so to speak. Head to OGs. Check out a game there. There's always great food deals, specials, great beer lists. They got it all. So thanks to OGs for all they do for the On Friar podcast. While Derek downloads the app, the walk-up music. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for being with us. It is the On Friar podcast. Thanks for checking us out on your platform of choice, whether it's the OG mode in your podcast app. Perhaps you're with us on YouTube, maybe watching NBC San Diego streaming on your Roku channel, maybe on NBC7.com. So many different ways that you can enjoy the On Fire podcast, and we appreciate you spending some time with us and walking through this season with us. We wish that there was kind of more positive stuff to talk about at this point, and it is still early, and lots of good things can happen, and we lived through last year and all that. But
as 124 games left, Darnay. How can you say it's still early?
We're not quite at that 40 game mark, right? And so we have 2 games before we can really draw any conclusions about this team. Hopefully, some wonderful things happen at Dodger Stadium on Friday and Saturday as we record this on Thursday afternoon after what was it, a 5-3 loss to the Twins?
Yep.
Coming off an extra innings loss to the Twins, coming off that Tuesday game where Machado homers and Soto has 4 hits, and you're like, all right, Michael Wacha has a great start. Thinking, okay, we keep grabbing onto these signs that good things are happening, and then we have 2 games like this going into another really crucial series. And so they just won't let us feel good. They won't let us just kind of get excited and optimistic. There always seems to be kind of a roadblock along the way once you start to see something good.
Yeah, first of all, there's an OG's Rewards app and an OG's app. I downloaded both of them. Did I need both of them?
That's a great question. I would guess for the OG's Rewards app, you might need that one for sure. Cool. If you want to take advantage of the rewards program. Silly of me to not know the ins and outs of OG's. That's a bad job by me.
Yeah.
I need to.
I saw 2 things. I was like, well, shoot, I was going to both.
I need to email the folks and get the lowdown on the OG's apps and make sure we have that right next time. But again, shout out to OG's and all they do for the On Fire podcast.
Okay, so we got that out of the way. Okay, so yeah, this offense sucks. It shouldn't suck, but right now it sucks. And after the game, Bob Melvin, remember we talked about this a lot last year, Darnay, in Arizona. Bo Mel, probably around August-ish, finally let his guys have it, saying, "Listen, we got to play better." He did that exact thing in May this time. Basically, the gist of it was, actually, you know what? I'm going to read you a couple quotes here.
Do it.
All right, a couple quotes from Bob Melvin, because as you know, he's one of the most even keeled dudes you're going to find, right?
Generally, yes.
Yeah. So he says, quote, "We have guys who can perform better. We're going to, but it's time to quit just talking about it. It's time to go out there and do it. Another frustrating game for us. Underperformed." The follow-up question from, I believe, AJ Cassavell said, "Well, how do you do that? You know, what do you do?" He says, quote, "You just got to fight a little harder and expect a little more of ourselves, all of us, myself included. We've not done that to this point. These stretches happen, but it's gone on too long. We've got to break through here at some point." All right. And there's another one I'm going to read you in just a little bit. That's pretty strong words from Bob Melvin, right? That is basically saying, we're too good. We need to knock this crap off. I don't know what's happening, but we just try hard. It's basically try harder. It's the don't make me coach effort thing that we talk about several times on this podcast as well. For him to get to that point in May, that was a little bit surprising for me. I don't know if it's because they're going to Dodger Stadium, and you're right. You could fall 7.5 games out of first place if you get swept by that team up in LA. You got to get yourself back into contention. But more than that, you are the worst team in Major League Baseball right now at hitting with runners in scoring position. And there are a few numbers we're going to go through a little bit later on in this as well that may contribute as to why that's happening. But Darnay, even just with the eyeball test, aside from the baseball savant stuff that goes into the numbers, you just look at this team. They just don't look like they're up there ready to hit, right?
Yeah, I haven't had another opportunity to do the savant deep dive, and it's funny. Xander's been a little bit out of sorts, since his streak
Illness,
ended. Well, yeah, the illness, and then the streak ended against the Reds, and he vowed to start another streak, and that hasn't happened yet. We think it will at some point. But the one guy that was kind of the steady force for this team, he hasn't delivered in the same way. Soto, I feel like, has looked a little bit better. You're seeing the shuffle. He had a nice at bat where he got struck out and kind of smiled at the pitcher. And so I think just seeing kind of his personality is a good sign. But I think and I think we discussed it a little bit early on. Look, if those guys are delivering, and Tatis had his homer, and Machado's done some good things, and Soto's been on a pretty nice stretch. When those guys are delivering, we shouldn't have to worry about them, right? But as we've discussed, when it's kind of spotty in the top 4 through 6, all of a sudden you're looking at 7, 8, 9 thinking, oh man. Now Rougned Odor out of nowhere hits his homer today, and he's been a source of some frustration for the Padres fan base. But again, those spots in the bottom of the order, and Matt Carpenter, Nelson Cruz, they got out to a great start, haven't kind of been quite the same of late. Austin Nola, we know Austin Nola's struggles. Hot Kim, an 0 for 3 day before he was spelled by Carpenter, or when Carpenter pinch hit for him. It's Grisham, an 0 for 4 day, and he was obviously up there at the very end. Or was it that? No, it wasn't at the very end. Maybe it was the
that was the 8th inning. 8th inning, bases loaded and 2 outs. And this was really the difference in the game, Darnay. The Twins have a chance to take the lead. Carlos Correa is up. Correa doubles down the left field line, 2-run score. Trent Grisham comes up with the bases loaded. Both of these at-bats with 2 outs. Grisham strikes out swinging. That's the difference. Mm-hmm. The other team both teams are 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position on Thursday. But the one the Padres got was Juan Soto with a runner at second base after Manny Machado doubled, Soto doubled. Nothing else the rest of the day. The Twins got theirs at the opportune moment to do the biggest amount of damage with 2 guys on, 2 runs scored. That's the difference in the ballgame. Mm-hmm. The big hits are not coming when the big hits need to come for this Padre offense, and they have too much talent for it not to be happening.
And it's not like it was an isolated incident, because if you go to Wednesday night's game, top of the 8th, they've got the bases loaded with 1 out, and Machado does his job, sac fly to score the game tying run, and then Soto grounds out to end the inning. And it's like, okay, yeah, you tied the game, you force extras, whatever. But when you have the caliber of hitter like even Cronenworth up there beforehand with 2 on and 1 out, you get the walk. Great. I think all of us are kind of tired of seeing them grind out walks. Like we all have a deep appreciation for on-base percentage and grinding out at bats and being having a discerning eye at the plate. But I think, man, to have a big 1 out, 2 on knock to kind of turn the tide would be great. The Machado sac fly again does its job, but again, when the bases are loaded, you feel like there's some meat left on the bone. And then in the 11th inning, Bogarts walks, bases loaded, Carpenter. And again, you've got Cronenworth, you got Machado, you got Soto, you got Bogarts up with that automatic runner at second. And then it's ultimately Carpenter looking at strike 3 to end the game. And so you've got 3 instances where you've got 2 on, you've got bases loaded, minimal outs, and you don't come through. And that was the difference, not just on Thursday, but on Wednesday as well. And you like a series sweep is right there. It's right there in front of you, coming off of Tuesday's win and just coming up empty continually the way they have in these big spots. It's why they're a 500 ball club right now and so far below our expectations for this team. And you go back to last year, it's like all the frustration was like June and July on, but they rolled out of the gates. I mean, they were playing good baseball out of the gates. Even if they didn't have super lengthy win streaks, they were winning series, and they had a nice, they padded their win total. They got to a spot where you're like, okay, this is probably a playoff team. And, they tested that as the season went on. This year, it's just been such a grind to start the season. And it's just, and that, it makes sense that Bob Melvin has reached kind of his boiling point at this point, because I even noticed it like a few weeks into the year, he was having to answer questions about their offensive struggles, and he wasn't as frustrated as he was now, but you kind of get the sense he was like, I can't believe I'm doing this already with this team, with all these guys, like every single day here in April, asking questions about us coming up short offensively. And today was the day where you felt like it kind of started to boil over a little bit for the manager.
Well, last year, I mean, did they have the same kind of expectations that they have this year? Not even close. We expect this offense to score a lot of runs, and they're not doing that. So when it lasts 38 games, you're going to start asking those questions, and you're going to continue to be asked those questions, because guess what? Those questions are valid, and those questions are applicable to what we're seeing from a team that has way too many all-stars on it, way too much talent in it to be doing what they're doing on the consistent basis that they are doing it. They don't have a hitting coach, not an official hitting coach, right? Like a Kevin Long kind of guy. They don't have that guy. And we've talked about this before as well. Go back and listen to those episodes. You probably play Drop the Needle on the last month. You're probably going to find somebody in here, probably me, yelling about the hitting coach, and Adrian Gonzalez's name will come up. Just go listen to it. I won't bore you with that right now. You got to find somebody who can drive that ship, who can get all these guys to get on the same page. And honestly, Darnay, I think this is an approach thing. The talent of this team has not changed. These guys haven't all collectively fallen off of a cliff. It's the 7 inches between the ears that is the problem with this ball club right now. Shall we go into a little bit of a deep dive on some numbers with how this offense is approaching at bats?
I'm all ears. I think
you'll find it interesting.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so got on the Baseball Savant page, right? Looking at, okay, here's, and by the way, I wrote about all this on NBC7.com/sports wrap. So go and check that out, or on Friar page as well. Bob Melvin, the last thing that he said today was this, quote, I just don't think there's enough tenacity throughout the course of a game. We show signs of it. We show spurts of it. We come out like we should, and then we don't sustain it for the entire game. That's the problem. And Bo Mel, being the baseball oracle that he is, hit it right on the head. I looked at what they're doing as a team. Guess which Major League Baseball team has the lowest strike zone swing percentage in 2023?
I'm going to guess it's the San Diego Padres.
You are correct. Give that man a cigar. I'm not sure if he smokes cigars.
I'll take a bourbon. I know you're a bourbon guy.
But we'll go. Give that man a bourbon. There, we'll split a bottle. They're swinging at fewer strikes than anybody else in Major League Baseball, which means they're letting more strikes go more than any other team in Major League Baseball. Okay, there is one person on the team who is the outlier, the person who is swinging at pitches in the strike zone like crazy. Would you happen to venture a guess as to who that might be?
Is it the new guy that just showed up and has done some really good things?
Yeah, the new right fielder. Yes. Fernando Tatis Jr. swings at 86.5% of the pitches in the strike zone, which is ridiculously high. He's also leading the team in slugging percentage, leading the team in batting average, second in home runs after playing half the number of games. And oh, by the way, he didn't play for 16 months. So I know he's an uber talent, right? He's the unicorn. He's the guy who nobody else can do the things he does. But can we not take something from his approach? He takes the first pitch of the game on Thursday and lines it out of the ballpark at Target Field. Why are the Padres not doing that en masse? So I looked even deeper into this. I went back to that Sunday game against the Dodgers. Okay. First inning. All 6 guys who came to the plate swung at the first pitch in the strike zone. What do they get? They get 3 doubles and they scored 2 runs against Julio Urias, a pretty damn good pitcher. We'd agree with that?
Yep.
The rest of the game, they had 33 plate appearances. 12 times they swung at the pitch in the first pitch in the strike zone. 3 of those Tatis, and who hit the ball hard a couple times right at Dodgers defenders. So take those away. It was 9 in 30 plate appearances. They did not have another extra base hit, and they did not score again. Now, I don't know about you, but if you start hunting these things down, you start to see simply start swinging the damn bat more often, and things are going to happen that are positive for your ball club. So it's an approach thing. Now, if we can sit here and look at this and go, okay, well, this looks like it's probably a plan. Let's go ahead and do it. Sometimes even coaching little leaguers, sometimes you say, just get the bat off your shoulder. Just get in the mindset that I'm going to be more aggressive and start going after pitchers instead of taking this kind of lineup wide passive approach, working a count. And then you're not getting at 2-2 counts. And well, okay, guess what? Now you're kind of at the pitcher's mercy because there is no fastball count anymore. That doesn't exist. Even 3-1, you're probably not going to see a fastball anymore in Major League Baseball. So you've got to get on pitchers earlier in counts. I mean, am I oversimplifying this here or are we on to something?
No, and I wish I remembered who posted it. Somebody posted a screenshot. It might have been Talking Friars, actually. Ben from Talking Friars. It was from a segment on MLB Network. Might have been DeRosa talking about Soto's approach, and it was a screen grab of his yeah, there it is. His swing rate, zone swing rate since from last season to April 26th, it was like 55%. And this is something we talked on when last time we did the Savant deep dive a couple episodes ago. One of the things that jumped out was not swinging at the first pitch and not swinging at strike pitches. Yeah, at strikes. Swinging at balls in the zone. Since April 27th, he's actually swung. His zone swing percentage is 70.7%. And so
and what's happened during that time?
Since April 27th, you led me right to it, not including today's game, but 1247 OPS, 400 average, 700 slug, a couple of homers, 16 hits to 7 strikeouts, 13 walks. Very, very good. Very like the $500 million type of Juan Soto good for the most part during that stretch. And so, yeah, there's something to that. And it reminds me of like when we talk about Blake Snell, just throw strikes, how I would almost kind of want him to have a game where like, I don't care if it gets lit up on balls in the zone, just see what happens if you throw just heaters down the middle again and again and again. And if it doesn't work out,
throw 54 seam fastballs in the first 4 innings and put them all. Just do that and see what happens. Just
for the experiment. And so I would love offensively for them to take that approach, just like guns blazing, swing at everything. I don't care, be confident, but don't be reckless, but like err on the like uber aggressive side. Just see what happens for a game. The results aren't going to be any worse than they are right now.
Thank you. Yes.
But I mean, I love, you looking at bat by at bat, because I mean, it's so interesting. And that's exactly what Melvin touched on today. Cause he said, I just don't think there's enough tenacity. Like we'll have it to start the game, but then it just won't last enough through the course of the game. And so I think that's where like your point is so on the nose with this team. Like we see it at spurts. Again, that Sunday Dodgers game, 3 doubles and then nothing after that. And today, Tatis jumping all that homer and then barely anything after that. They're just not consistently as aggressive. And then Trent Grisham, what was the first pitch he saw when he was up with the bases loaded and 2 outs? 93 miles per hour, grooved right down the middle. And how many times have you seen that happen? The first pitch, they watch it go by, and you're like, he's not going to get a better pitch than that. He's not
And
going.
interestingly, it's Grisham, it's Kim, and it's Nola, who are 3 of the guys who take a lot of first pitch strikes. The first strike they have is a called strike. Even if it's like a 1-0, 2-0 count, they're taking a called strike instead of being aggressive and ready to jump, ambush somebody, and ambush something like what Tatis did today. That changed the way that was it Bailey? Whatever his name is, the pitcher for the Twins on Thursday. That changed the way that he approached that offense. He's like, whoa, hold on a second. He gets on his heels just a little bit, knowing that they're out there ready to ambush something early in the count. And that makes him just a little bit more careful, might make him a little bit more fine, maybe get a few more walks. But if nobody else is doing that, it doesn't do anything. If you know you get like one dude's going to do it, you can avoid that one dude. If you've got a lineup full of guys who are like, "Oh, bring it. I'm throw something in the zone. I'm coming after you." Yep. Then you have to know that, and you have to adjust the way you attack accordingly. And they're not putting it boils down to this. They're not putting pressure on pitchers, and they're not making pitchers second guess themselves. Because as you know in baseball, and this is what happened again with Blake Snell, if you second guess yourself or you're not 100% committed to what you're doing, you're not going to be effective. And they're not pressuring opposing pitching staffs the way that they should be able to, and they can do with the talent they have up and down this lineup. I know it sucks. Like this is hard.
And as always, I mean, let us know what you think. At Derek NBCSD on Twitter, at Darnay Trip on Twitter. If you're with us on YouTube, drop some comments, questions into the chat. We'll get to them, and always want your feedback and appreciate you checking us out. However you do so. We're trying some new things. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, it's just it's infuriating, and as Melvin said, like it's time to quit just talking about it. But I also think I've been wanting to go back today to some of the previous sound bites I've run on the TV side and heard from Bob Melvin, because it feels like we've heard a lot of these lines already, which is disconcerting. But it's time to quit just talking about it. Like I know he said that at some point already this season and talked about the frustration. Got to fight a little harder. You can't help but draw back to Jace Tingler and the word battle when Melvin's talking about fighting. I was like, oh no, is this just Melvin's version of the Jace Tingler got to battle? And so far this season, it's been just about as effective. And I am the furthest thing from like questioning Bob Melvin, because again, he proved it last year, and he figured out the right button to push, and we saw what happened from that Arizona series on to the postseason. And so given his track record, I know, that's the obvious thing is like you go to a manager in situations like this, and I just don't think Bob Melvin's that guy, and it's going to take a whole lot more before you change my mind. But it's the other interesting part was, I think it was AC asking him, like, I'm sure you wouldn't be saying this if you hadn't already talked to your guys. And he's like, I'm not going to get into that, but they know how I feel. And so I'm curious how close the scene was today after the game to what it was that one. I think it was Thursday night in Arizona, because a fire needs to be lit. Something needs to happen. And I was thinking about it after the game, like I don't know how rational or irrational the hitting coach thing is. It's hard because we're not privy to a lot of these conversations, right, and like what information is really being passed on and how things are, the inner workings of things. But my maybe irrational knee-jerk reaction after this game and given how the first month and change has gone is overhaul the offensive staff. Just do it. Just start there, because you have this unorthodox offensive staff with Flaherty as the offensive coordinator. And if you want to keep some guys around and change positions, whatever. I'm not saying just go through, fire everybody. But as we've discussed and you mentioned earlier, like who is the guy? And I know this organization has struggled to find the hitting version of Ruben Niebla, but man, if they don't need to get that guy, and whatever situation they have right now isn't working. And so at a certain point, I would think maybe that's something you look at, and I don't know who's available, and might be tricky to do that during the season. But given just this team's, they've just consistently underperformed offensively going back to last year. And it's even more apparent this year when they have the pieces, when you have a Bogarts who, Bogarts has obviously done plenty, but and so has Tatis, but just slow start for Machado, slow start for Soto, seems to be getting in gear, all the usual suspects that have struggled, that's just more of the same. We should just 5 runs, 4 runs in back-to-back games, like that should be nothing. Like that should not be a concern, especially when they've gotten quality starts. And the bullpen has been shaky, and they've had to be used a lot, especially within the 11th inning game. And so that hasn't helped. But a team shouldn't get to 4 or 5 runs, and we think as fans and followers of the Padres, well,
this game's over. Yeah,
I don't know if they're gonna be able to match that. Like, how with those guys? Like, how is that a thing?
It shouldn't be. And I mean, just to kind of touch on that hitting coach thing again, is for most organizations, the hitting coach is also the guy who puts together the approach, helps with the game plan, understands the scouting reports, walks everybody through for the hitters meetings. How are you going to approach this guy? How are you going to approach this guy? So if you have that guy who was just driving that bus on, this is how we as a team are going to approach pitchers. This is what we're going. This is our identity as an offense. The hitting coach very much sets that kind of tone. Again, for most organizations. I wonder if and we talk about identity in sports a lot, all the time. What's San Diego State's basketball's identity? Tough nose, hard nose defense. You're going to have to earn everything you get. What's the Kansas City Chiefs' identity? Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are 2 of the greatest offensive minds ever to get together, and you're always going to have a fight in your hands when you're dealing with those guys. We know what they are. We don't know what the Padres offense is right now. We don't know. There's no identity for that offense. Are they a bunch of maulers? Are they a bunch of high OBP guys? Are they a bunch of strikeout artists? Are they going to work a bunch of counts? Are they going to be aggressive? It's like a bunch of different kind of disparate pieces all pushed together that really don't all fit, because there's not one cohesive thought process and approach moving forward. You see that with the Phillies. Everyone does the same thing. You throw it a strike, you're screwed. We're gonna rip you. You see that with a lot of different clubs who are going, this is what we do. The Rays right now, they do not watch a lot of hittable pitches go by. They rake. And they're, of course, often one of the most historic starts in baseball history. The Padres don't have that. What is it that this team is offensively? Because I honestly don't understand. I'm not sure if they even really have one right now. Can it come from the skipper? Can it come from one of the assistant coaches? Where does that come from? Because right now, I don't see it.
Yeah. I was just looking at AJ Casavel's piece on MLB.com, which is his work is always worth your time. And, just looking at some of the quotes, Tatis saying, of course, there's some urgency. Machado talking about we've got to execute with runners in scoring position. I like this line from Matt Carpenter. You can only rest on the baseball card for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And some guys' baseball cards aren't looking as good, this year as they have in the past. And then the line from Tatis, saying that he agrees with everything Melvin said. We've been saying too much how it's going to come. It's going to come. We got to make it happen. I feel like everybody in this clubhouse is good enough to make it happen. It's up to us to hold ourselves accountable. So guys are saying the right thing. Melvin delivered a message, it would appear. I don't know if it was quite as fire and brimstone as it was in September, but, clearly kind of a firm message to his guys after the team, and everybody seems on board and to have gotten that message. We'll see what happens going forward. Again, this time last year, all that happened when they were in Arizona. Diamondbacks a bit more gettable at that point when they were way out of it than what you're going into this weekend when you're facing the Dodgers and you're already 4 games back or so.
Mm-hmm.
And, you run the risk of, and it's, still so early. So if they go down 7 games, I mean, there's plenty of time to reel those guys back in, but, again, not expecting to kind of be in that position. So again, it's not like they have this, come to Jesus type moment and well, we've got the Reds, we can beat up on them a little bit and feel good about ourselves. You're going up against the Dodgers. You're doing it at Dodger Stadium. Now, fortunately, as disappointing as the end of that series was, I think if you take a step back and look at how competitive those games were,
Yeah.
the fact that the run total was 9-8, the fact that it was you almost held one of the top scoring offenses in baseball to 5 runs in 3 games, which is phenomenal. And you almost took the series, given the scoring margin was like 109-47 last year, and they outscored 18-6 in their first series. Like there was a lot to like, as frustrating as it was to be 1 out away and to lose the series. But they got it, as the guys said, they got to do it. And I think all of us have been kind of like looking at the Savant pages and Fangraphs pages to try and figure this out, and all that is applicable as far as kind of approaching that sort of thing. I hope that there's some insight within the organization as well, to, hey guys, it might be worth trying something different, because what we're doing right now is not working, and maybe it's worked for you in the past, and maybe that's your comfort zone, but it's not clicking this year. And so hopefully, you mentioned the tenacity and that sort of thing. I would love to see that, especially at Dodger Stadium, right out of the gates, being on the attack. And like, heck, if it doesn't work on a Friday night in Dodger Stadium, given the way that you're playing, that was probably an L regardless. So, might as well try something new and hope that gives you some sort of a spark.
Yeah, it's May, right? But keep in mind, you don't play the Dodgers 19 times this year like you used to. You get them 13 times this year. Worst case scenario, let's say you go up there and God forbid this continues to happen and you get swept. Well, you're 7 games back of the Dodgers and you have 7 games left against the Dodgers. So you can't just go out and beat the guys in front of you now and make all that ground up. You can get back to even, but you're not going to make all that up and then take a lead again. You have to fix this as quickly as you possibly can. There's no like, oh, well, hey, we're going to have 12 more games against these guys. We'll be fine. We'll figure it out. We'll get to. And there's also the mental thought of, man, even last year, like they got us in the regular season. I know the postseason is a whole different animal, right? I mean, the Dodgers are a different team in the postseason for whatever reason. The Padres also a different team in the postseason that we saw last year. And again, with 124 games left, you hate to start talking about like, well, yeah, they got to get to the postseason to prove that, because there's still, a ton can happen and a ton is going to happen left in this season. But you just like to see it start maybe happening now before frustration does continue to set in. I think we all still have memories of 2021 where things started off great. And again, Bob Melvin wasn't here and Jace Tingler was. And it's a very different vibe in that clubhouse. But as fans, we start thinking, you know what? It's when things start to go bad, we don't have a long track record of these guys turning bad things around again. So if this is going to be what this offense is and they don't have the ability to turn this thing around, like that's a real thought for a lot of people. And it's a real fear for a lot of people. Now, is it legitimate for, again, how much skill is on this team? Hopefully not. But right now, 6 weeks ago, I just said, no, they're fine. Now I'm like, well, what's that old Bill Parcells line? Your record is what you are, what your record says you are. Well, right now, is this offense what the numbers say it is? Because I know there's more in there, but if you're not showing it, then you are what you are.
Yeah, I do think there's, because Machado got off to a slow start, because Soto got off to a slow start, because you didn't have Fernando Tatis Jr., I wonder, like, do you start counting the 40 days, the 40 games, at the start of May, once Tatis is around and once these guys start clicking a little bit, because they are a little bit of a different team from that standpoint. I think in terms of 2021, hopefully last year's experience is kind of, because we went through that PTSD and that trauma was very real through points of last year. And we all we had these conversations and asked these questions like, are they really doing this again? And it obviously turned out completely different. And so, I don't know. Hopefully that's some of that is collectively out of our system. Right. What I do find really strange, and I almost tweeted it yesterday. Last year, the longest win streak was 5 games, the entire season. This year, longest win streak is 3 games. 2021, their longest win streak was 9 games. 2020, in a shortened season, their longest win streak was 8 games. 2017, it was like 5 games. 2012, they won like 9 in a row at some point. 2013, they won like 8 in a row. These are like 76 win baseball teams, not the 2020 and 2021 versions. But whatever reason, that 2020 and 2021, like they got on a roll. And even there's been some bad Padres teams in recent history that have got on a roll. And maybe those bad teams didn't win 10 out of 15 or 20 out of 26 or that sort of thing. But for whatever reason, this team just hasn't been able to stack wins like the way the Dodgers have the last couple of weeks. So they won 6 in a row and then 8 out of 10 or whatever it was after the Padres series. And I think it's just that's part of what's made it a bummer is like they can never do enough for an extended stretch to make you feel like, they dropped an 11 inning game to the Twins, whatever. They came up empty a couple times, bases loaded, whatever. They just won 7 in a row and 13 out of 17, they're fine. But because it's just like they nibble away at some of these wins in some of these series and show you little signs here and there, and you start to kind of talk yourself into it, and then they have 2 games like this, they never do enough to make it easy to just kind of brush off, a tough game or two. There was the one a couple weeks ago where they lost. I forget who it was on a Thursday. And I was like, you know what? This just kind of, it might've been the Braves. It's just like, this feels like just your run of the mill kind of Thursday loss matinee game. I'm not going to read too much into it, but because they just seem to kind of spin their wheels, and because they haven't ever gotten like scorching hot. When you come across a game or two, like Wednesdays and Thursdays, it makes it hard to just be like, they're fine. Because they haven't shown you enough to really give you that sort of confidence.
Well, what's the other side of that long winning streak?
Long losing streak.
Long losing streak.
And I'm sure some of those teams had some really long losing streaks.
Precisely. That's what I was going to say is last year, the Padres did not have a winning streak longer than 5 games. They also did not have a losing streak longer than 5 games. I'll bet you that, and that's the Bob Melvin effect. It's consistency. That's what he is. He is consistent. He is there every day. He's the same guy every day. That's why when he does come out and say something like this, it resonates. It has more impact because you don't ever hear that from him. Go back into 2021 and some of these other seasons, you'll see, they did play really well for long stretches. And then they were absolutely terrible for long stretch. I mean, look at the 2021,
late August,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games in a row, and 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 12 out of 13 they lost.
So that's the flip side of the coin. Yeah,
that's the flip side of the coin. Exactly. So if you're going to be, consistency is great. If you're not going to have long winning streaks, you also just have to avoid long losing streaks, which this team did all of last year. And that's a consistency that builds you up to 88 wins. It gets you in the playoffs, gives you a chance to go to the National League Championship Series. Avoiding the huge swings, the huge left of we're so high. We won 9 in a row. Oh my God, we lost 13 out of 14. That's the problem with so many of these other Padres teams. Just don't have the long skids. Be able to get a few here and there, and then go on a 5-6 game winning streak, and then drop one. But you're still, like you said, you're still winning 12 out of 15, 12 out of 17. That you go 12 and 5, you're good. But even though if you didn't win more than like 5 in a row, you start winning series, win a series. What they're doing right now is they've just lost 2 straight series. That's not cool.
I just think this team is good enough that they should be able to have their cake and eat it too. And
the talent's there.
The talent is there. And I think that's what's frustrating. Like if you're projected to have the most wins in the NL West and second most wins in the National League and be a World Series favorite or contender, however you want to term it, then obviously you shouldn't be losing 8-10 games in a row. You shouldn't be losing 5 games in a row, but you should be able to do what some of these other teams do and rattle off 7 straight, rattle off 8 straight, rattle off 9 straight. I think it's like the floor is much, much higher than it was, a couple years ago. I think we all acknowledge that. We all appreciate that. The
ceiling's higher and the floor is higher. Correct.
The ceiling's higher, but like, I feel like the ceiling should be higher than it is. You know what I mean? Like it should be more fun. Not only should we not be in the doldrums of dropping a whole bunch, like having a miserable 2 weeks. We should also have the type of like exhilarating, was at the end of June in 2021 after reopening day when they won 11 of 12. We're playing incredible baseball and holy crap, this is so much fun. Have we
Fueled by
had,
emotion. Yeah, that
we
was fueled
haven't
by
had
emotion.
I don't know if we've had a stretch like that since then in the last 2 seasons, taken aside, obviously what happened in the postseason was exhilarating, and seeing them kind of finish September the way that they did. I find myself longing for one of these extended winning streaks where you can start to be like, okay, they're figuring it out. This team is good. They do have the potential to kind of reach their peak, and this is fun for a little while. And it just they haven't made it super fun outside of a game or two here or there. And I guess that's kind of what I'm saying.
Now, I will say 23 of their 38 games have come against teams with winning records.
Yeah, that's the thing.
And let me see, 3, 10, 13 have come against teams that are currently in first place. So that's it's been a little bit of a rough schedule early on. You know,
Sure.
I heard the New York Giants are going to have to play 7 of the first 10 games on the road this year. The NFL schedule is coming out there. It's not been that, but it's been like they played a lot of really good baseball teams. And then the Cubs are 1 game under 500. They got 3 at Wrigley Field. That's a tough place to play. You're playing you've played a lot of really good baseball teams so far, and you basically held serve 19-19, right? You get a winning record against the teams that are not very good, Giants, Reds, yada yada yada. So they played well against some of these other clubs. And you got to figure the schedule is it's going to soften up and open up at some point, right? In fact, after this, they get Kansas City. They get 3 at home against Kansas City. They get Boston, who has not lived up to expectations this year, although they have been playing a little bit better as of late, 8-2 in their last 10. And they get Washington. They get Miami. They get Seattle, who's underperformed. They go to Colorado. Like, the schedule opens up just a little bit here. So let me ask you this. Do we need to make a lot of this right now? Because they haven't been playing the way that we expect them to play. And granted, if you're going to win the World Series, you have to beat really good baseball teams. And they do have a winning record against the Braves this year. Or do we say, all right, let's see what they do against teams we know they're measurably better than. And if they start struggling against those teams, now we've got a serious problem on our hands. Or am I rationalizing right now?
No, I think that's fair. And I think I say all this feeling like they're probably going to be fine. I think it's just, this is where
I don't know it for sure, Darnay.
I think so. I mean, I do. And especially coming after last year, and I'm trying to apply the dread that we applied to last year because of 2021. I'm trying to apply the optimism from the way they finished in 2022 to this year. And so I think, and you make a great point about the schedule. I think that's real. And I think at some point it's going to click. I don't think that they're going to finish 81-81. Now, are they going to win the division? I'm probably a little less confident in that now than I was to start the season. But I still feel like, look, the pieces are there for a playoff team, for this to be a playoff team. We're yet to see them consistently play at their peak. The bullpen has been a soft spot. The rotation, I think, especially kind of the back 3 guys or back 2 guys, whatever, have outperformed expectations for the most part. So, I mean, I think they're going to be okay. I think it's just the frustration of seeing them kind of spin their wheels and tread water and not, again, kind of get on a bit of a roll and do enough consistently to make you to reinforce that, to give you a reason to be confident. I'm just going off to steal Matt Carpenter's line, what we see on their baseball cards, what we saw last year, confidence in Bob Melvin that he's going to press the right buttons and that the lineup's going to get going at some point. But I'm not there yet. I think they'll get there. I think this is a playoff team. But it's just frustrating when you see, like, you're looking at a situation where the Dodgers are 5, 6, 7 games up on them in mid-May. Like you said, fewer opportunities to kind of reel them in head to head. Like, I didn't expect it to be one of those years. Like, is that number going to suddenly inflate to 11 or 12 by July? Like, that's kind of a bummer, Like, I was really excited to kind of have a season where we're watching a division race like from start to finish. And who knows what could happen this weekend? They sweep the Dodgers right back in, and everybody's feeling great. And they certainly have that capability, and they showed it last weekend. But I'm waiting to see it. But my default setting at the moment is like they're gonna get there, they're gonna be okay. It's just taking a little bit longer to have it come to fruition.
Two things here. One is positive. Right now, the Padres are tied with the Marlins for the last National League wildcard spot.
Yeah.
So the playoffs are still within reach. So that's solid. Here's the kicker, right? This is the thing that really, I think, to me, crystallizes the difference in this offense between what we're seeing. Like, again, we're always going to compare ourselves to the Dodgers up the freeway. Okay. The Padres have allowed one fewer run than the Dodgers have this year, the same number of games. So defensively and pitching staff, they've been better than LA. The Padres are -2 run differential. The Dodgers are +48 because the Dodgers have scored 51 more runs than the Padres have so far this year. And that's like, how? I don't get. Because, I mean, again, granted, the Dodgers lineup is fantastic. However, Outman's a rookie. You know, they're playing guys in here that I've never heard of before. How are they this much substantially better than the Padres offense? It has this many studs in it. Like, that's the thing that I'm trying to wrap my brain around, and I simply do not understand what the hell is going on.
Well, Outman and Bush came through, and Betts came through on Sunday. I mean, we saw it firsthand, game on the line, and those guys came through. And we've just been waiting for that for the Padres. Their Padres run differential has slowly crept closer to 0. I think it was like -3 this time last week. I think it was like -8 earlier this year. I don't know. I think they're getting a little bit closer to equilibrium, which is great.
They're now -2.
Yeah, they're still trailing. And what are the Rays now? +115. So they got a little work to do before they can catch the Rays. Maybe that series in June they can reel them in a little bit. But it's yeah. I don't know how much more I have to add other than it's just a bummer. I don't have like great insight right now. I'm just like, gosh, man, like it wasn't supposed to be like this. And I think what you say about kind of what they've done defensively, what they've done pitching, especially in the rotation, has been very, very encouraging. I think the way they handled the Dodgers lineup for the most part, again, until that, what was it, 8th inning on, very, very encouraging. But that's not, again, we went into the season like, if they're league average pitching, they'll be fine. Right. But what did Bob Melvin say today? We've put too much pressure on our arms, especially late in games.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, this is like league average or below an offensive ball club. And so it's putting that much pressure on the staff. And to their credit, they've done their part for the most part. And so when we complain about Austin Nola and Trent Grisham and these guys, it's like if Manny's an MVP candidate, if Juan Soto's an MVP candidate, if Fernando Tatis Jr. has been really good, he's had some stretches where he's been a bit quieter. Xander Bogaerts been a little bit quieter, but like when your top 4, top 5, including Cronenworth, are who we thought they were, we're not talking about Trent Grisham, except for him making a great play in center field. We're not talking about Ha-Seong Kim, except for the, occasional homer and masterful work in the infield. We're not talking about Matt Carpenter, except for his mustache. We're not talking about Nola, except for, wow, he called a great game, and the pitching staff really seems to like him. But we're talking about all these guys because the level has been just, instead of being here, it's been here kind of across the board for guys that we expected to carry the load, be in MVP conversation, be in All-Star game conversation.
Should we talk a couple minutes about the bullpen? Because it seems like it's been absolute feast or famine. And it feels like they're starting to get a little bit overworked here. Or am I reading too much into that? Brett Honeywell was really good on Wednesday, and he's been really good most of his outings. Couldn't find the strike zone on Thursday. Had some troubles, and it cost him. Steven Wilson has been started off really well, maybe a little bit of fatigue. He's been in the game. He's been in a lot. Tim Hill has been great until he's not. Luis Garcia, I don't know what's going on with Luis Garcia this year. He hasn't been the same guy. Josh Hader even to scuffle just a little bit later, in the last couple of outings here. What they've got a lot of talent there. Obviously, they're missing Robert Suarez. Obviously, they're missing Drew Pomeranz, who may or may not ever pick up a baseball again for the rest of his professional life. What else are they missing? Does Ryan Weathers need to come back and help this team out at this point? Like, what is going on with the bullpen? It's been good. It's been really good at times, but it's also been wildly inconsistent.
Yeah, and today was tough. You Darvish, and hopefully it's nothing. Melvin seemed to think it was nothing, but he was kind of like shaking his arm a little bit. And so the way he was going, I mean, you're looking at 7, potentially 8 from you, 80 pitches to get through 6. And then you're not worried about Honeywell. You're not worried about, some of these other guys. You're able to, now what did Hader do? Trying to think who went on Wednesday. But it puts you in a position where you have less stress and you're having to be less reliant on your bullpen, which is always a plus, especially given the way that things have been going lately. I don't hate the idea, of Ryan Weathers, if he's feeling stronger, whatever it was that they felt like, okay, he needs some time down, if they brought him back up. But they got to do something. Nick Martinez is, for the most part, been Nick Martinez, and you can kind of throw him anywhere, and he's generally reliable. But that has been a soft spot and a bit of a concern and a question mark for this club. We got to wrap up here in a few seconds. I'll let you have the final word as we go into the Dodgers series and maybe where things are with the bullpen.
Oh, just real quick. Ryan Weathers, 2 starts in El Paso, 8 innings, no runs, 8 strikeouts, just has 7 walks. Maybe that's an issue, right? He's not coming up. All right. Going in the Dodger series, final to say is start swinging the damn bats.
Do it.
It's very simple. Just go in there. You've seen these guys. You know what these guys are. You're very familiar with Dustin May and Julio Urias. And Tony Gonsolin. You know what they are. Go out and get them. Be the aggressors. Swing the bats. Take it to them. Even if it doesn't work, at least you went down trying.
Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, everybody.